I know. You just can't get enough of me. Yada yada blah 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 blah, 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 blah.
Okay, Jane, how we doing? Thumbs up, awesome. Okay, everybody, welcome. This is Career Lab Wednesday. We're here every Wednesday from noon to 1 p.m. Central. It's good to see a bunch of you joining on. I want to set the stage for us. Some of you have been on before, some of you haven't. There's a few ways that you can engage. We love it when you jump directly on the Zoom link like Donna, Keshav, Janet, Daniel, good to have you on. Welcome. And Chiquita. That's fantastic. If you're not able to jump on the Zoom directly, you're free to watch on YouTube or on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, you can type them into the comment section and Jane will get those over to me. So that's a couple ways to engage. Again, I love it when you jump in directly here. So be thinking about what you want from our time today. We work with everybody in any point in career. So if you're just starting off and you have some interview questions, if you've been at your career for a while and you're looking at maybe shifting and that's something that you maybe never expected to do, we work with you on that as well. So there's no question too big, no question too small. Lots of people join in over a few months to really dig in deeply and get served in the ways that they need to. So we're talking about connecting during the holidays, but again, our job here is to really serve you with whatever career questions you have. So you're welcome to go off topic if that's what's on your heart. So as I've got a lot of people joining in, I'd love to open up the space and see if there's anything in particular that you're wanting support with today. Anything that I can dig in with you on right now.
I'm just checking in to get the great support since I started a new job 2 weeks ago.
Woo! Congrats, Janet. That's fantastic. Would you share with us about the transition process?
You mean the very uneasy transition process between my former job and my new one?
Well, if it serves you, one thing I do want to underline is that it is important to celebrate. When we
I
have
love this new
wins,
job.
we want to
It's
underline that by celebrating it and pointing it out, not just hiding it. So
the transition from leaving the old job was a little difficult
mhm.
because you are fully aware of some of the issues that were going on. But the new job, oh my God, they have been so welcoming. Everybody here is eager to help me learn my job. I mean, it's like a night and day difference. And the training has been going a lot smoother. As a matter of fact, you might hear me just pop out and be on mute most
Absolutely.
of this because I'm on lunch and in between training sessions today. But I feel more comfortable in this new job, which I
And
didn't feel when I went in my old in
totally.
the job I
And what
last left.
this is really helpful to a lot of people, Janet, is to look at what is it that you did differently in starting this job than you've done in previous positions?
Um, I actually gave myself a day break between starting the two jobs so that I could decompress and write down all the bad feelings that I had from my old job so that I wouldn't carry them into this new job that I've started with. They were actually reaching out to me 3 days before I started this new job to make sure that everything was going okay, that I had all my equipment, and they were introducing themselves as who I'd be working to, because I work through a staffing agency right now for a major company, and the company, the leaders I'm working with, they were reaching out. They're like, "Hey, how you doing? How was your honeymoon?" and everything like that. They actually seem to feel like it feels like they have a more vested and genuine interest in me than compared to my last job.
Okay. So, Janet, can I talk about you a little bit?
Sure, I'm in a green mood today.
Okay, okay. So this is all true, but what you haven't been saying is about what you did differently. You, in the process of joining in Career Lab, doing some coaching sessions, and you began to interview them, the other companies, this company and some other ones, and you started to really assess yourself and be curious about other companies in a way that I don't think you had done before.
Oh
And I,
no. In the past, it'd be like I'd just take whatever company decided to take me, no matter
okay,
how
so you
miserable I
started
was there.
valuing yourself more.
Hmm.
And in doing so, you actually demonstrated to the company that you were valuing them more because you were asking questions about the position and what was really going on there because you were like, do I really want to work here? And
Yeah.
as you're doing that, they're now experiencing you as more and more competent, more and more open to really learning about that position. And so in this process, you've used your career transition or your job transition to develop yourself.
And I've actually, through all the coaching, because you met me when I was at a very, 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 very low point. Um, through a lot of the coaching and the starting of Year of More and the More Life training, I started to actually see myself in a different light, which let me project it out to potential employers. And they're like, hey, yeah, we want to work with her.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so this is awesome. I want everybody to get what Janet's working on. This is our approach to career, is that we see it as a pathway or a vessel for you to become who you can become, for you to reach your potential. And so when you're in the interview process or when you're at the job that you're currently at, what you're looking for is how is this setting me up to develop myself? How can I use this position to develop myself? How can I use this situation to become who I can become? So that's what Janet's talking about. What Janet did was she used her job transition as a opportunity for her to develop into the woman that she's becoming. And
Slowly.
that's it. Yep, one step at a time. One step at a time. And so, as we're talking about the holidays and getting ready for 2023, we've had a lot of people join in recently. I saw that. We have people joining in who are saying, hey, I'm looking for work, but what can I really do right now? Companies aren't hiring. That might be true. Companies might not set up an interview until 2023. But this is a key time for you to be connecting with people. Um, when you're at holiday events, networking, talking with people, now is a great time for you to get to know more about yourself and really think through what it is that you want from your next opportunity. And so this time of holidays is not, we could set it up just to use it as a way to check out for a couple weeks. And I could say, oh, I need to rest and I just need to unplug. And some of that's fine. But we can also say, I'm going to use this time to get to know myself more and to establish deeper connections, deeper relationships with people. And that can really serve us in our career. So, welcome. We've got some more folks joining on. I want to remind everybody that there's a few ways that you can engage with us. So if you can, I love it when you jump directly in on this Zoom link. That way I can work with you one-to-one. And if you're not able to, then you can always type your questions into the comment section on LinkedIn or on YouTube. And I'm getting some notes from Caesar. Shift in mindset is big. Yeah, agreeing with what the work that Janet's been doing. Fantastic. So, hey, welcome. Welcome, Sahar. Good to have you.
Hello, thank you.
I'd love to check in with you and see if you have any updates from our last time meeting.
No updates. Yeah, I haven't really applied for anything else actually. So I don't know. I guess I'm in that holiday hibernation mode right now.
Uh-huh.
But also trying to think of
I got it.
more, I guess,
Pick up.
processes and tools for organizing myself better because oftentimes there's tasks that I want to get done outside of my day-to-day job, more of like side projects that I'm working on. And often I don't end up doing those, or I end up doing a very minimal amount of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been kind of thinking more about different tools I can use to be more disciplined around things like that when, life gets busy.
Like, what's one thing that you'd like to do?
I'd like to try time boxing because I'm pretty good at to-do lists, but I've read recently that to-do lists are actually not really a good way to plan your time and plan your tasks. So I guess I'm going to try that as a strategy, but I'm interested to hear if others have other tools that they've used that are helpful with like kind of planning out your time and your tasks better. So you kind of stay, if you have like a goal and you're trying to stay disciplined with spending, a certain amount of time per day on that goal, how do you kind of stay disciplined to do that?
Great question. And I haven't said this yet at least not today. Part of how Career Lab works is feel free to jump in. Jump in with any comments, suggestions, type into the chat if you want. So this is open to everybody. It's fine if we talk over each other sometimes. So tell me about time boxing. I'm not familiar with that.
I think it's basically just instead of having just a running to-do list, you put designated time slots on your calendar and you estimate the amount of time a task will take. And so it's not just a task on your to-do list, it's a task that's on your calendar for a specific time. And it's supposed to help with discipline because ideally you would, when it comes to that time, you would use that designated time for that task. So it's pretty simple concept, but it's kind of going beyond just putting things on a to-do list.
Yeah, but what happens with something else arises during that time you're supposed to be sitting down and doing that time boxing?
Yeah, that's the challenge that I face a lot of times. So I guess you're supposed to reschedule it, but then, if you're rescheduling the same thing like 10 times, it's like, when are you actually going to get to it?
Okay. So there's a few things on this. When I was working on my capstone paper for my master's, it's a 40-page paper basically, which was it's like a mini book, not something I am particularly good at. And I did this time boxing thing. I didn't call it that, but what I did was I would set up a time with my coach. I had a writing coach during that time. And I would send out my outline and I would say, okay, I'm going to spend 30 minutes on this paragraph. Then I'm going to spend 30 minutes on the next paragraph. And I literally had it scheduled out that way. What I found when I started doing it, and I would communicate with him. I would send him a text message saying, okay, completed paragraph 1, completed paragraph 2. And, he'd just give me a thumbs up or something over text. What I found was that it usually took me less time. It took about 25 minutes, sometimes 22 minutes. And I would use the time in between to so I get up and walk around and sometimes throw a temper tantrum because it was an uncomfortable process for me. But I found it worked really well. And if things come up in that time, when working on something like that, it's just a no-go. I would block off. I mean, that was usually on Saturdays. And there wasn't other things weren't allowed to happen. So if you really have some intention on a project, you will probably want to have other people involved, some kind of accountability with it. At least for me, I'm just not that reliable without having some accountability. How's this landing?
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I have a career coach I've been working with, so it's definitely helpful to have someone accountable. Usually I'm only accountable to her a couple days before we meet, when I start to procrastinate on the action items that we set, and then I start to work on them like the day before we meet. So, but that is still accountability.
Uh-huh. So yeah, okay, so you notice how you put it off, but you
Yep,
do get it done because you have that set up.
yep, yep.
Okay. So how would you, with this time boxing thing, how would you make it more effective for yourself?
Um, Probably just avoid the procrastination aspect of it. Just
How often do you say I'm just going to avoid the procrastination aspect?
well, I think something that I'm going to try, and I don't know if it will work, but I'll see, is kind of breaking up tasks into even smaller increments. So rather than do something for 30 minutes, because I find that my attention span is pretty low these days, like just break that task up into 2 mini tasks and just do 15 minutes of that per day. So I'm going to try that to see if that works, but I honestly haven't tried that approach yet, so I can't really comment on it yet.
Oh, cool. Okay. Will you let us know how that goes?
I will. Yep. I have 10 days between now and my next meeting with my career coach, so I have plenty of time to try this approach.
Fantastic. And what is it that you're working on between that you're applying this to?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I mean, part of the reason why I haven't applied to other things is because I wasn't particularly motivated by or intrigued by anything that I've been seeing coming out internally. So 2 of the tasks that I have set up for myself are to like look up organizations or companies that I might want to work with in 2 areas that I'm interested in. One of them is like organizations that support or help women in STEM careers, which is obviously a lot different than what I do now because I work in pharma. But also another area of interest of mine is like organizations or companies that focus on diversity in clinical trials. And that's a little bit more closely related to what I do now. But 2 of the tasks are for me to like actually look up via like Google or LinkedIn to see if there's any organizations out there that I might want to apply for. So that's one task that I'm working on.
Okay, cool. Cool. I Donna Fanera was just on here, and if you look her up, she had to jump off, but that might be an interesting connection for you as well for what you're looking for.
Oh, okay. What was her name?
Donna Fanara.
Okay.
And the other thing that you're mentioning about what you're looking for in there, that's what we've found in the career process is that identifying companies that are mission aligned with your mission. So I'm going to kind of speak to everybody about the process that you've been on as you've been joining in here. So getting to know yourself more, this you'll see similarities with Janet. So there's an identifying what's important to you, and then looking for the companies that are mission aligned and are going to help you realize that mission in the world. But also what we really focus on, a lot of people talk about that part, but is what are the companies that are going to help you develop the skills internally that you are looking to develop. Oftentimes, it's just kind of how human beings are wired. We forget about ourselves And we just get oriented towards, okay, what's the good that I'm doing in the world? And we forget to think about ourselves and how to really nourish ourselves in the process. And that's why a lot of times why people get into burnout is because they haven't learned how to put themselves first or put the oxygen mask on themselves, and even to know what that means to themselves. It's a skill, actually. Tending to ourselves is a skill that we can develop. And there's more and more, research and kind of minds on this now than there probably were 10 years ago, but it's a pretty new thing for us to be looking at. So nice going. This is exciting stuff. Well, so this is Career Lab Wednesday. I'm going to do a quick room reset. It's great to have so many people joining on. It looks like, as we're going into this holiday season, what we posted about was that personal connection is nourishing, and getting feedback and care from those in your circles can be a big blessing if you intend it to be that way. So as we're going into this time of spending time with friends, family, maybe having more work parties than normal, whatever, is to be looking at what is it that I want to get out of these interactions with people. If I'm going into a holiday event where everybody's just sitting and watching TV, and I'm like, okay, I know that kind of underneath that, after that's done, I'm just going to have this kind of bland feeling. Who is it there that I'd really like to have a connection with? Who is it that, is I'm interested in getting to know more? I would like them to know me more. And having an intent to create that conversation, to create that connection, can be really helpful. And so I'm encouraging everybody to do that. And the other point that we're making is, yes, companies may not hire right now. You might not have an interview between now and the new year. But there's certainly things you can do to reach out and make contact with people, whether it's over LinkedIn or sending a reminder about your application, or doing some kind of activity to get you more connected with the organizations you're interested in. And so the other thing I love is that it might, in your interviews and in your job and in your life, being alive and engaged and having that uptick of energy is a really good thing to do. It's a really good skill to be able to learn how to do that. There's all kinds of research about how our body can change our mind. There's things like, if you go in before going into a meeting, if you put your hands up for 2 minutes, like Superman pose, that's actually going to increase your feeling of confidence. That's right, Janet. Yes, and doing things like this actually work. And so we're recommending that during this time of holidays and celebration, you have an excuse to be a little more alive and engaged and happy and playful. It's kind of acceptable. So I'm encouraging us all to bring out our elf, if you've seen that movie, and bring out our delightful self more. We can kind of do that, and maybe have that be more and more and more a way of our being in our meetings and in our relationships. So that's what we're talking about this holiday season. Caesar, good to see you. James, welcome. I want to open up the floor to everybody. If you can, jump in directly on this Zoom link. If not, type your questions into the comments section on YouTube or LinkedIn. Caesar, what's going on?
Hey, good to be with you, George, and everybody else. Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you.
Good to participate and be a part of the community. And I see some friends out there that I've invited as well. So good to see them as well.
Oh,
A question for you related to just the holiday season, and really kind of a managing my career question. I'm 100% remote, so that you have some context. So there is a holiday party. Unfortunately, of course, I won't be there since I won't be flying into New Jersey for it. Wondering if you have tips, recommendations, ideas, maybe from others, to connect with coworkers, teammates in this virtual holiday season environment where I can't be there. I mean, obviously, I have one idea, but would love to hear from the team. It sounds like Janet has some ideas.
Well, we just had one in the year more, a Zoom party. like a little Christmas Zoom party because I'm in a job that's 100% remote right now too. And I made the effort to drive down to New Jersey's a lot further than where I live would be, but most of my team's down in Indianapolis. So but otherwise they were going to move the party on to online and do a Teams Zoom um WebEx party online to where we could get to know each other. I mean, that's one way because um like my festive background in the back.
Yes, I
It's
love it.
it's a way to connect because well, I'm that's the hardest part I'm learning right now. I don't know how long you've been working tele remote, but I've been doing it for about over 2 weeks now. And the only contact I actually have with somebody is via Zoom now.
Mm-hmm.
So I would think a Zoom party would be kind of neat.
All in. Thank you.
What do you think about that, Caesar?
I think it'll work. I mean, I'm used to Zoom now, not Zoom parties. I've never thought about a Zoom party. I think they're going to actually give us access. Our holiday event is tomorrow, and they will give. I think it'll be sort of a hybrid where some people will be in the office, and then those that are remote will participate. But what triggered as a thought, as I'm hearing Janet, is maybe I could host a Zoom party with my entire team. That's a little bit more inclusive of folks that I work more closer with to do just that. Because that's what I like about what I'm hearing from Janet is nothing prevents me from hosting my own Zoom party with my core team, in addition to the big company party that's going to happen tomorrow, as an example. So thank you, Janet.
That's awesome. There's, you know what, as you were sharing, Janet, all kinds of things that I didn't even realize were happening. You mentioned the Wright Foundation's holiday party. So I certainly have some things I could share that I didn't even think about until Janet started sharing. Does anybody else have some thoughts and suggestions about remote celebration?
Yeah, this is Lucky. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I think to me now's a good time to pick a few people who I'd like to have a soft conversation with and call them. The yearning is great for that. My yearning type of my relationship is too. I have one scheduled tonight.
Okay, Lucky, it's hard to hear you, but I heard enough words, so I'm gonna actually build on what you just said.
Right.
So that's one thing I was thinking about with what Lucky brought up is having intentional conversations with people. Caesar, are there other people in your organization that are also working remote?
Yes. Hmm.
Okay. So what could you do to facilitate something that would really meet your yearnings, what
Well,
you want?
I mean, Janet's suggestion sparked the thought. We have something called Focus Fridays, which is no meeting Fridays, and there's nothing that prevents me from just sort of connect with people one on one, those that I want to. To your point, fulfill my yearning to connect and spend some time with folks, maybe one on one. That might actually be a little bit more. I know it will be more intimate than hosting a Zoom party. So I like both ideas. Back to Janet's idea, like I could host my own sort of holiday gathering with the people that I want to, with my core team, so to speak. But then there's this opportunity that I have to just connect with people one on one that will be just as fulfilling, maybe even more fulfilling with some folks. So that's what sparks for me. Hmm.
That's awesome. Okay. And I was thinking about that, the connecting one to one. And you could use a format of what are the successes? What
Hmm.
over this past year, what are you proud of? And over this past year, what are the challenges? What didn't go well?
Hmm.
And if you can share about that, not in a to tank the conversation, but just kind of a reality of what's going on. And then, okay, and what's the vision for 2023? And as I've started doing this, there's so much that has happened in 1 year. It's remarkable. And if I don't ask myself this question and ask other people, like, it might just kind of go by without, really kind of harvesting the gifts and the challenges that have happened.
Makes sense. Thank you.
And that one-to-one connection, Caesar, that you're talking about, I want to underline that for everybody, and also for Janet, who just started at her new role, is that's one of the most important things, is to have that one-to-one contact with people, especially in a remote environment, because there's all kinds of research about it that when we don't have a template of who we're talking to over emails, over text message, etc., we don't make decisions. And so we get stuck on things that we don't really need to get stuck on. But if we know who we're talking about, if we know, Sam over there is working on this, he's got 2 kids and his wife is working on this, and this is who they are as people, then anytime I get an email from Sam or some communication on Slack or whatever, my brain has stored all that, and he's a person to me, and I'm going to be able to respond much quicker than if I don't know who I'm talking to. So this process, Caesar, of you really getting to know people more in this, I think would be really, really serve you and serve them beautifully. So that's great. I'm looking forward to hearing about it.
Thank you. Love it. And appreciate everybody's help.
Hey, George, that's the reason why I made such an attempt on my first week of my job to go down to the team meeting down in Indy, was so that I actually had faces to go with the names.
Oh, I love that. Good job, Janet. That's fantastic to hear. Well, so we're coming up halfway through our time today. This is Career Lab Wednesday. We're here every Wednesday, noon to 1 p.m. Central. And we invite all questions. Anything that you're working on, career related, our job is to support you in that.
I'm working on the commitment I made last Wednesday.
Yes. Lucky. So fill us in.
I went to a networking event to talk about neurofeedback and the type of therapy.
Good job. So you went on Monday?
On Monday.
And how was it?
Well, I walked into a room, usually everybody gets terrified, so I wouldn't do anything. But, there's a lot of people wanting to mingle, but very hungry to present their own, what they had to offer.
Okay, Lucky, it's so hard to hear you with the birds.
Let me try something. Is this better?
The birds are really loud.
You go in the other room.
Cool. So Lucky's checking in on something that he did. He brought up last Wednesday of a good idea for him to do. But Sayar, it was sort of like with you and knowing that there's some things you might want to do, but having that accountability and using this group as that. So being able to come in today and say, okay, I did it. And if I hadn't said that, if I hadn't told this group I was going to do it, I probably wouldn't have actually done it. Okay, Lucky. So you're on, I can't hear you at all now. I can still hear the birds. All right, Lucky, I'm gonna keep going here. So opening up the space for anybody who wants to share, how can we support you today? Daniel, good to have you on.
Hey, nice to meet you. It's my first session with this group, and mostly just listening in. I am. I recently had a job loss. My company closed down pretty suddenly and surprisingly. So I wanted to know if there's any advice that you have on switching industries. Any sort of just general wisdom. That's one question. Another question, sort of on my mind as I re-aim myself and think about what's next, is it ever worth applying to jobs cold? Like looking on LinkedIn, finding jobs. It sort of feels like without a warm connection, chances are slim to none that you'll, even if you're qualified, that you'll get a call back. So those are a couple questions that I'm interested in.
Okay, great. Overall, let's start with your second question first. What do you think? How would you answer your first question or your second question?
Well, I've done a lot of hiring, and I typically I try to look at every resume and do sorting that way. Um, I guess I'm asking but my lived experience is that just recently is that really no traction is made without that warm connection. Um, so if there's interesting, I kind of feel like it's more the you should have a warm connection, but what happens if you don't and you're still interested in the job? I'll give you an example. I applied to something several weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago. I've done in-mail on LinkedIn to every person I know. I've done second, third, every person who's connected to that organization. Followed up, not overly, but just once a week. Nothing. And so I think I'm really qualified for the role. But I'm a bit frustrated that it's a bit of a brick wall into building a warm connection.
Okay. So that's been my experience usually with this is what you're saying is that at a certain point, it's going to be your network that gets you the job. You know, at a certain point in your career, that's going to be the tendency. When you are reaching out to people on InMail, it's individuals at the company,
Right.
and you're not getting any response from them.
Mostly not, right? I mean, so for instance, one person, I've written a lot of different in-mails, and they a couple weeks in accepted a connection, but never responded to any of those. And so this week, yet a couple days ago, I wrote them on their email address directly, which I got from LinkedIn as well. Hey, maybe you don't get in-mail, maybe it filters out. Just wanted to reach out to you here as well. You know, that's the part that I struggle with the most, because
Can you
when I
say
get
which organization this is?
I can. I mean, I'm in New Mexico, and it's an organization called Leadership New Mexico, which is a leadership and workforce development organization. Um, and so anyway, when somebody reaches out to me on LinkedIn or email, even if I'm super busy, it may take me a few days, but I'll respond. And so I'm wondering if I'm putting something out there that's over eager, or if it's just people are busy this season or in general, or yeah.
So, do you know what need does that organization have right now?
The role I applied for, the role that they're looking for is a leader, the president. I'm making some assumptions. I don't know them very well. I'm making some assumptions that the person I've tried to reach out to the most is the person leaving that role, presumably leaving that role, who holds that title now. But also the person who responded when I initially just acknowledged that an application was received, and secondary people in that network as well.
Who do you think in that organization is most affected? Like feels it has the biggest impact of the president needing that role needing to be filled?
Yeah, I would imagine it's the board, and it's a nonprofit. So either the president herself or the board, one of whom I was it was the person who acknowledged my application originally.
Okay.
Yeah,
And you've reached out to them?
I have. Yep.
Okay. You know, that I don't know what I think. It sounds like you're hitting on the points there. One of the things I've seen is that sometimes in an organization, finding who is really affected by that, because they're the people who are going to respond. If somebody's leaving, that might be the last thing on their mind. That might be, for the role that you're applying for, what you're saying, they might be like, okay, this isn't my job to handle. I'm stepping out because I want more work-life balance or whatever. And so you might look at some connections there that who you might not think up front would be who are really needing you, but who might be the ones who would push your resume and say, hey, let's look at this guy, or let's make sure we set up this interview. We found that most places hiring processes aren't that great. Some places are, but there's plenty of organizations that just suck at hiring.
Right.
And so you taking on the ownership of that and making it as easy for them as possible and finding where their gaps are and filling those gaps can give you a lot of insight into a company, perhaps, and set you up for it. Companies often need to hire and they don't necessarily have a good process for it. So how are we doing at serving you today? What is this helping?
I mean, it's validating that the doors I've been knocking on are the right ones. And maybe to the earlier conversation, as great as a company looks on paper, if they can't be responsive to you, or their hiring processes really suck, or you're just not getting anything, maybe that's the answer. Just to kind of move along in your interview of them.
And you might, okay, and if you're getting to that point with them, you might say something like, hey, I've identified this as a company that I really think I would be a good fit for. And if that's not the case, I'd really appreciate a direct no, or to find out what it is that I could do to help in this process. Because it seems like you have a need here. And maybe I'm the answer to that, or maybe I'm only half the answer to that. I don't know. But, here's somebody who's saying, I'm here to help you. And to really be clear about that might be your next move.
That's a good one. Thank you.
Okay, cool. And that's the other thing too, though, is in this process, you do want to have lots of options. We always recommend people get a lot of offers lined up. Now you have been you're at your last company for 6 years?
Yep.
Okay. Are there any other opportunities coming up that you're seeing?
Oh, definitely. That's not the only one. That just was an example of one of the coals in the fire. And actually, I just left, and so I'm not. I really was trying. I was thinking about this sort of self-imposed sabbatical to read some books I've been trying to read. Really think about what I want to do next. Perhaps change industries to my other question, which would then not leverage the same network I've had as strongly, which I am doing, but as strongly as I would if I were 100% sure I was staying in the same sector. Okay.
So let's address the first question then. So absolutely, you can transition to something else if it's. There's always transferable skills. You've got enough experience that there's going to be that there. The thing that you'll do is you'll learn how to communicate how those transfer. So you'll put on your resume, the thing that we always focus on is PAR or STAR. So problem, action, result. What was the situation that you came into with a certain position? What actions did you take? What were the results you achieved? And the number one thing that people are really looking for is, do you get shit done? Are you somebody who gets results? The other thing that people are looking for is, and they might be less conscious of this, is do they like working with you? Are you somebody that they want on a team? And so if you can communicate those two things clearly, you don't have to worry as much about making sure that everything's exactly right. You need to be specific about what your accomplishments are, and as specific as possible, because that will give people more information. They'll be able to say, "Oh, okay, that really grounds that for me. I can picture the results that Daniel created there, even if it's in a different industry." And then you can share about, you're going to be developing your career narrative to say, I'm looking to switch because of this. This is important to me, and I see this as an opportunity for me to develop. And that's a big turn on for companies, because having somebody who only has experience and has a lot of expertise in something, that's not always the most important thing for companies, because things are shifting. There's a lot of change happening. And so if you can communicate, no, I'm really interested in where your company is going. I'd like to be a part of this journey. And, I'm going to learn whatever skills I need to. I'll get whatever certifications I need to. Fine. That's not as big of a deal. But if you can really get aligned on where the company is going, and they get a sense that you're excited about that, that's very attractive.
Yeah. On the get shit done communication part in your resume, that makes sense, and I think I've achieved that. Is what you're suggesting about what you're characterizing as the number two? Are you a good person to work with? Are you somebody we can envision you on a team? Is that something that you're suggesting that you would communicate on a resume or on interviews?
You'll communicate that through your interview way more.
Yeah. Are there strategies to communicate that type of thing, in your opinion, on a resume or on an application?
Anything that you can say about, I want to hear what you have to say about that and how you would communicate that on your resume. I think there is, but how would you do it?
Right. Well, one thing is I'm a resume one pager philosophy guy. So I try to be really concise on and to the point on resumes, and so I don't have a ton of real estate. Maybe I should rethink that. But moreover, I do enjoy working with teams and coaching, and
how would you show that on your resume?
Typically the way it's represented now is the fact that I've just the output, that I've grown teams, that I've just sort of metrics, not heart. So I need to relook at it.
No, I think what you're saying is spot on, and maybe have somebody else look at it as well, to give you
some
more
LinkedIn
feedback about yourself. Yeah.
I have some people who I think 2 or 3 on mine who have these sort of like public testimonials about working with me, which I think are valuable. I look at those when I look at other people.
Yes.
Yeah.
But even doing a session, a coaching session, or a time with a friend or colleague, where they can give you feedback about yourself and give you feedback about your bullet points, to really highlight this. So if you've developed teams, that shows, oh, okay, that tells me, great, this guy's good with people. I know it because I can see it, because the teams he's had flourish. Cool. But we often find that people aren't really good at naming their own gifts. And so it can be really helpful to have somebody else say, dude, Daniel, like, are you even aware that you do this in a group or whatever? Sometimes people get the feedback like, you are the glue that holds a group together. You relate to every single person on there, and you're unconsciously competent about that. So I don't even see this in your resume. I don't even see this in your summary. And so you might want to look at getting that feedback from people who you know, or doing a session with somebody and having them tease that out.
That's great. Thank you. Perfect.
Absolutely. Okay, so I think, how are we doing with your 2 questions?
I think they were addressed, but somebody else can take the floor if they want.
Sweet. Okay, Daniel, keep us updated. I want to know how this goes. This is, I think, exciting times for what you're working on, and I'll take a little more look at your LinkedIn profile afterwards.
Yeah, just as a quick networking thing, my sectors in the past, obviously intersectional in a few things, but mostly international development work and med tech, medical devices.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Thanks.
You bet. Caesar, yeah, what's up?
Hey, just wanted to jump in as I'm hearing from Daniel, and something I posted on as a question for you, maybe even the team, is I wonder if Daniel is intentional about getting a LinkedIn recommendation from a former boss or a peer that highlights how he enjoys developing teams, or whatever he wants to sort of be branded around might help him. This is an idea.
That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, thanks,
Absolutely.
Cesar. That's great. I've reached out for some. I have 2 or 3 on there, but I should be more proactive in growing that, I think. Yeah.
And intentional, I might add. Like, in other words, like saying, okay, well, what do you want to get recommended about that's in line with, what you want to sort of highlight in your resume and beyond? Back to George's question, might be one way to approach it.
That's a really good point, Caesar. One of the things I've learned in asking people for testimonials and recommendations, and having other people ask me, is that I'll often stall on it because, like, there's so much I could say about somebody. And so it really helps me when they send me exactly what they want me to say. If I disagree with it, I just won't do it, and I'll tell them that. But usually that just helps me that, oh, okay, this is what they want me to highlight about them. Okay, fine. Yeah, I can do that. And it makes it easier for me. I've got all my to-dos and things. And so I can lose intention, or I don't know, I'm a little victim-y there, but I can just not do it because I don't have as much clarity. So if you can provide as much clarity as possible for whoever you're asking from, that'll make it happen more likely. And sometimes it's the connection. Like, I'm somebody who likes phone calls and hearing voices more than I like writing and text. And so if one of my clients called me and said, hey, would you do this for me? I'll be like, great, can we just record it? And then you handle whatever it is that you want from the recording. And so it's not me like sitting down and typing things. So you might be looking at who you're asking from and saying, hey, how would you like to do this? Okay, cool. Good stuff. So we are coming up on the hour here. This is Career Lab Wednesday. We're here every Wednesday, noon to 1 p.m. Central. And our goal is to support you in your career, to have you become the person that you want to become by way of your career. So all questions are welcome. We are going into more connection time, holiday time. So we've gotten to look at that, how to do that in this hybrid or virtual world, as Caesar was talking about earlier, brought up the really great point about doing one-to-ones with people. So maybe hosting a celebration time for other people who are working remotely, but then also taking the extra step to have one-to-one meetings, looking at how was your year? What happened? What happened that you were excited about? What happened that was a challenge? and what's the vision that you want going into 2023. With that note, I have not shared any of this today. We've been getting a lot of engagement here, but you can set up a 15-minute call with me. If you're looking at taking next steps and you're joining in here and you're not quite sure what you want to share, set up a time to talk with me. That's a free 15-minute coaching consultation. I'm happy to talk with you about your goals and what you're looking for in 2023. So that's something to take advantage of. Another thing is our signature training, the More Life training. That's January 6th through the 8th. Check that out. If you can make that, if you can get that on your calendar, that's a deep dive into social and emotional intelligence, some of the stuff that we've been talking about here, but how to really know yourself, know what your mission is, to be more turned on towards seeing who you can become. It's a great way to start off the year. So look at that, book that if you can. And again, if you have more questions about that training and you want to talk about it with me on that 15-minute call, do so. Set that up. I look forward to talking with you. I love making connections. That's one of the gifts that people have pointed to me that I wasn't so aware about is, George, you just get so excited about making connections for people internally, things that they didn't know they were good at, that kind of thing, and connections externally. So take a look at that. Chiquita, I'm just seeing you on here again and seeing some of your shares in here. I hope to connect with you as well and learn more about what you're working on and your goals. And as we're going into 2023, stay connecting and keep thinking about who you want to become, who are the people that are going to facilitate that, what companies, if you're in the job hunt or that question, what are the companies that excite you, and be in that visionary space for what's possible. So we've got another couple minutes. Chiquita, before we sign off, is there, I'd love to hear from you if you want to jump in and just share about yourself for a minute here before we wrap up. Or will I see you get to talk to you
Hi.
later?
No, I can talk now. Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you.
Yeah. So, hi everyone. Yeah, I've been for 2022, I've been working on trying to change careers. I've revamped my resume. I've done mock interviews. I've landed a few more interviews with other people, but I haven't really reached the goal of getting, a new position. So for 2023, my focus will be to, I guess, to take a look back of what I didn't do for 2022, what could be better, and just try to continue on the goal of getting a new job.
Okay, cool. Chiquita, definitely join back in. Let's get you some more support in your goals for 2023 and set up a time to talk with me individually as well.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. You bet. Okay, and I'm seeing another thing that came in here. Another question. Jane, I think we're gonna have to get to the question from DeSota next week. That's fine. Okay, well, everybody, thank you for joining in. Sahar, looking forward to hearing about how time boxing goes for you. And you might try that thing about just sending text to your coach and telling them how you're doing as you check off the things and see what that feels like.
I'll try that. Thank you.
Okay, you bet. And Lucky, great to hear that you went to the event and that you're using the group for accountability. Good stuff. Good to see you all. And until next week, stay connecting and enjoy as we're going into the shortest day of the year. Time I actually like, because it sparks new beginnings. All right, take care, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, George.
Bye.
Bye.
Bet. Thanks,
Bye.
Caesar.
George.